Above our heads, a sword of Damocles hangs by a thread. The power to obliterate our world rests in the hands of fallible humans. We live in a world of geopolitical tensions, where mistrust festers. The countdown to catastrophe could begin with a single fateful step. One detonation can vaporize entire cities, leaving behind a toxic wasteland. Radioactive fallout would contaminate air, water, and soil, poisoning the planet for generations. The living would envy the dead, facing a slow and agonizing demise from radiation sickness. The Cuban Missile Crisis stands as a stark reminder of how quickly miscommunication can escalate into a full-blown crisis. Cooler heads prevailed, but the lesson was clear. The threat is real. The threat of nuclear war is not a relic of the Cold War. It is a clear and present danger. As long as nuclear weapons exist, the potential for their use remains. We must remember the lessons of the past and work tirelessly to prevent a future defined by mushroom clouds and radioactive fallout. The path to nuclear war is paved with incremental steps, a gradual escalation of tensions. It often begins with a breakdown of communication, a failure to understand or empathize with opposing viewpoints. Political leaders might misinterpret signals, perceiving threats where none exist. Technology, once hailed as a beacon of progress, can become a catalyst for conflict. Cyber warfare can blur the lines between peace and war. Misinformation and propaganda can inflame public opinion, creating a climate of fear and suspicion. The erosion of trust in international institutions and agreements further exacerbates the risk of nuclear conflict. As tensions escalate, nations draw lines in the sand, issuing ultimatums and making demands. Military forces are placed on high alert, and the machinery of war grinds into motion. Each side views the other's actions as provocations, confirming their worst fears. The risk of miscalculation grows exponentially as the pressure mounts. In this climate, accidents can be mistaken for deliberate acts of aggression. A false alarm or a misidentified aircraft could trigger catastrophic consequences. The individuals managing nuclear arsenals are under immense pressure. The 1983 Soviet nuclear false alarm incident is a chilling reminder of how close we have come to disaster. Only the calm response of Stanislav Petrov prevented a retaliatory strike. The world watches with bated breath as the crisis unfolds. A cascade of errors can transform a simmering conflict into a nuclear conflagration. Miscommunication or miscalculation can set in motion a chain of events that spirals out of control. The speed of modern warfare compresses the time available for decision-making. Military commanders facing incomplete information may feel compelled to act quickly. The fog of war, exacerbated by cyber attacks, can obscure the true nature of the threat. The increasing reliance on artificial intelligence in military systems introduces new vulnerabilities. AI systems, susceptible to bias and errors, could trigger a false alarm or unintended launch. Imagine a scenario where a rogue state launches a cyber attack against a nuclear-armed nation. 0 hour. A nuclear weapon is launched. It might be a deliberate act or a tragic mistake. The moment the button is pressed, the world changes irrevocably. A missile streaks across the sky, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of millions. The world watches in horror, transfixed by the spectacle of their own destruction. Within minutes, the missile reaches its target. A blinding flash illuminates the sky. An ear-splitting roar shatters the silence, followed by a shockwave that levels buildings. A mushroom cloud rises ominously into the sky. The immediate aftermath is a scene of unimaginable devastation. Thousands, perhaps millions, are killed instantly. The initial blast is only the beginning of the nightmare. Fires rage through the ruins, fueled by the debris of a shattered city. The air, thick with smoke and ash, becomes difficult to breathe. Those who survived the initial blast now face a new horror, the firestorm. As oxygen is sucked in to fuel the inferno, winds reach hurricane force. The injured cry out for help, their pleas lost in the cacophony of destruction. Medical facilities, overwhelmed by the sheer number of casualties, are ill-equipped. Radiation sickness, a silent killer, begins to take its toll. Outside the immediate blast zone, the world watches in horror. The unthinkable has happened, and the world is left to grapple with the consequences. As the flames die down, a new danger emerges: radioactive fallout. Invisible and insidious, it spreads silently on the wind. Microscopic particles of radioactive material rain down on the earth. The fallout doesn't discriminate. It contaminates the food supply and seeps into the water table. Those exposed to high levels of radiation experience debilitating symptoms. The body's immune system, weakened by radiation, is unable to fight off infections. The long-term consequences of fallout are equally devastating. Cancer rates skyrocket, affecting entire generations. The environment is further degraded by radioactive contamination. Beyond the immediate devastation, a new threat emerges: nuclear autumn. The massive fires loft millions of tons of soot and smoke into the upper atmosphere. This dense cloud of particles blocks sunlight, altering weather patterns. Temperatures plummet, triggering a global winter. Growing seasons shorten, crops fail, and ecosystems collapse. Famine stalks the land, food supplies dwindle as crops fail and livestock perish. The social fabric begins to unravel. Humanity, once poised on the brink of greatness, is reduced to a shadow of its former self. The collapse of civilization becomes a grim reality. With the loss of global communication networks, the interconnected world crumbles. Cities are reduced to ghost towns. The intricate web of trade, finance, and governance unravels. The rule of law gives way to the law of the jungle. Trust evaporates in the face of scarcity and desperation. Knowledge, once carefully preserved, is lost. The flame of enlightenment is extinguished, plunging humanity into a new dark age. The survivors must rebuild from the ashes, piecing together the fragments of a shattered civilization. The echoes of nuclear war reverberate through time. The physical scars on the planet may heal, but the psychological wounds run deep. The genetic legacy of radiation exposure continues to cast a long shadow. The world that emerges from the ashes is a pale imitation of its former self. The loss of biodiversity and the long-term effects of radiation have altered the planet. The survivors carry the weight of history on their shoulders. They cling to the hope of a better future, determined to ensure such devastation never happens again. The specter of nuclear war remains a clear and present danger. The destructive power of these weapons demands our unwavering attention. We cannot afford to be complacent. The path to nuclear disarmament is arduous but necessary. We must work tirelessly to strengthen international institutions and promote dialogue. The alternative is too horrific to contemplate. The choice is ours to make. Let us work together to build a world where peace reigns and humanity's potential for good can be realized.